Okay. Okay, this is Mike Ginevra, and this afternoon I'm over at one of the coffee shops in Menlo Park, and we're going to take a look at the a part of the job search process that's really critically important, and that's marketing yourself. And we're going to look at three particular aspects of marketing yourself. One is resume, second is cover letter, and the third is business card. Again, remember that the job search process is an integrated process. There are a whole bunch of steps in the process, they overlap, and in order to be successful or to increase your chances of being successful, it's important that you follow through on every aspect of the job search process. The more you do, the better your opportunities are going to be successful in getting the kinds of jobs that give you joy and satisfaction and fulfillment, as well as put bread on the table. Now, this afternoon, we're going to be looking at specifically the part down there in the lower right-hand corner on marketing yourself. But remember that there is this total process that I summarize in the module on job search process overview. And this part, marketing yourself, being able to communicate to others, communicate to people with whom you speak, to friends, to colleagues, and ultimately to employers, how you can help the employers solve problems and serve their customers. And that's what you're basically communicating, how you can use your skills and your knowledge and your abilities and the passion and love that you have in life for doing certain kinds of activities, how you can use that combination to help employers be successful, how you can help them to solve problems, and how you can help them to serve their customers. Okay, the basic objectives of the module, and this was a part of the larger job search course that I did previously, and I created previously. We want you to be able to describe the components of a typical resume. On your own, write an outline of your resume with as many details as you can. We want you to be able to describe the uses of a cover letter and the contents of a cover letter, define the contents of your business card, and think about a printing source for your business card. Again, made the outline, the components of a resume. In the class I would have the students start writing the resume. Again, that's something you'll do on your own time. The components of a cover letter, the uses of a cover letter, components of a business card, and the uses of a business card. And the success team is a reminder of don't try to do things on your own. Don't try to do everything on your own. Build a supportive environment for your job search, for your career development, and ultimately for the way that you implement your own life work. And success teams are a term for support groups to help you through that lifelong process. Okay, first we're going to look at the components of a resume, and before I go into the details, I'm going to pop out of this screen, and I'm going to pull up this right here, this page. This page has the early version of the resume that I developed and used in the Career Center that I ran, and that I later refined. And the thing that I like about this particular form of the resume is that I really spell out the different parts of the resume, the different components here of the work history, and this is what we're going to be putting together. At the end of the module, I'll look at a slightly different version of the resume that condenses the spacing of information. But for right now, I'm going to use this particular version of the resume because it gives us a chance to look very clearly and visually at the different components of the resume. Okay, I'm going to go back to the slide presentation now. Keep in mind, this is what we're going to be building here in the resume part of the class. Okay, back up here. So now, the main components of the resume. At the top of the resume, you have your contact information and the job objective. You tell people, tell employers the kind of work that you're looking for. And you want to make it easy for people to get in touch with you about the job. Okay, key job-related skills. This section sometimes is called the summary, but this is where you put in your most powerful points that you can about why you are the right fit for the kind of job that you have mentioned in your job objective. And you want to, as closely as you can, link the skills that you have and that you can demonstrate that you have to the actual job requirements. We'll talk more about that. And then you have your work and education history. And for the purposes of discussion right now, we'll talk about focusing on the last 10 years of work experience, and I'll talk more about this whole question of how far back you should go later on. Just in case you notice, you probably hear some of the background noise, and I'm recording it outside. If this doesn't work, I'll record it again inside. Okay, your contact information and job objective. Okay, for the contact information, you're going to put your name, you're going to put your phone number, if available, your cell phone number, whatever is the best way for people to contact you. Your email address. In general, I tell people not to include their home address on the resume. It's a matter of privacy. Resumes get passed all around. You want to always have a copy of your resume with you, that you can, multiple copies of your resume with you that you can share with people. And the electronic copies get passed around, paper copies get passed around, and it's a matter of privacy. I generally tell people not to include their home address, and at most give the name of the city where you live. And then the job objective. The job objective, you want to give a brief description of your job objective. You want to let people know the kind of work that you're looking for. Okay, so pop back here and take a look again at the resume. And I'm going to focus in at the top. So you notice at the top of the resume, generally I center it. I put the city, don't put the home address, put my phone number. I generally just use one phone number, and I tell people to use the one that is easiest to contact you with. And for most people, that's their cell phone. Make sure that you have voicemail associated with that, so that you can, if employers try to reach you, they can leave messages. I actually had a situation where a student had a home phone where she had a recorder, and then she had a cell phone, but she did not have voicemail on that. And so I said, well, let's use your cell phone. And I didn't ask about, well, do you have voicemail on that? And it turned out she didn't. And what happened was employers were calling her to interview her, and they couldn't reach her. And finally, at some point in the conversation, she was saying, well, people weren't calling her back, and then it turned out, she had her voicemail, her recording machine on her home number, on her home phone, on her land phone, and not on her cell phone. So we put in her land phone number, and then people could reach her. Always give people your email address, and nowadays pretty much everybody that I worked with had an email address, but if you don't, learn how to use email and include an email address in there. Now the job objective. The point here about the job objective is to let the employer know the kind of work that you're looking for, and let them know up at the top of the resume. When I, as a manager, am considering a candidate for a position, I want to know that they're thinking about the same kind of job that I'm thinking of hiring them for. I look at the job objective. If I see a good match, then I'll continue going on in looking at the rest of the resume. Now we're going to look a little bit more in more detail at the key job-related skills and qualifications. In many resume formats, this is called the summary, and I think I actually use that more often in resumes in my later work in the Career Center. The point here is that you first understand the requirements of the job for which you're applying. Look at the job description, look at the job posting, use your experience in terms of what employers look for in people with that position. And in this case, it's a courtesy clerk position. This is really an entry-level position in a supermarket. But you look for, make sure that you understand the requirements of the job, the skills that are needed in the job, what the employer is looking for, what qualities, what personal qualities they're looking for. And then look at the mapping to your own knowledge and skills and abilities and personal qualities. And take the top 3 or 4 items and put them in this section of the resume, the key job-related skills and qualifications section of the resume. In this case, this fictional person here, Mike Smith, he had previous experience as a supermarket cashier, and he trained new supermarket employees, and so he had directly related skills, and probably at this point he's applying as a courtesy clerk because he's trying to get into a new supermarket where he hasn't worked before, and so he's applying for an entry-level position to get the American English expression, get his foot in the door, and then be able to go out and get started in the supermarket, and then progress into high positions, greater and greater responsibility. Okay, I'm going to go through this with the resume. I just look at the resume and talk about the parts of it, and then we'll look at the slides in a little bit later to help us summarize. Now, the next section of the resume is work history. Now, in general, when employers are considering candidates, they put a real high value on the work history that people have, the real paid work experience. If you're in a situation where you have just graduated from high school, are just looking for your first real job, you might or if you have some specialized training that you did related to the job, you actually might put education history first. But if you have some job experience, then in most cases for a resume, the first thing people are going to look for is work history. If you don't have any paid work history, but you have related volunteer work, then you put that in here. Okay, so in this case, Michael Smith, he's got his work history here. And the work history is to let people know where you work, the business or organization where you work, let them know where that business or organization is located, especially if it's local. A lot of times people hiring individuals, new people, will want to know how much experience they have here in the Valley, in our case here in the Silicon Valley. And it can be very useful that you've had that experience, so you're familiar with the customers, you're familiar with the work environment, the kinds of expectations that employers have here in the Valley. And so you put the location where you work. The next is your dates of employment. When were you working there? In general, employers look for the month and the year, They look for a starting date and an ending date. And some employers will even ask for the particular day. And if you can't remember the day, you give the best estimate that you can. And that's true all the way through on the resume. If there's something where you're just not exactly sure, you give your best estimate. You always be truthful, never lie, but give the best estimate that you can. And especially if you're talking about work that you did, several years ago. You might not remember even the month that you started, but give the best estimate that you can. Okay, the job title. What kind of work were you doing? And then your responsibilities and accomplishments. And I want to emphasize this right here, accomplishments. This one is a little bit, it's kind of subtle in the way it approaches accomplishments. And I'll point those out when we look at some of the items here. But you want to get beyond just saying these were my job duties. You want to be able to communicate to employers how well you performed. And so if you can quantify, put a number on the value add that you gave the employer, that's great. If you had positions of increasing responsibility in an organization, you want to communicate that. If you won an award from the organization, or even better yet, received commendations from customers for your work, you want to include that in here so that it isn't just saying this is the job I had and these were my responsibilities. This is how well I did the job, this is how well I helped employers solve problems and serve customers. And so now in this case right here, rang up sales on cash register. Okay, that's okay. At least it communicates something that's important to know in working in a market environment. This next item, trained new cashiers. And this, notice up here, mentored and trained new supermarket employees in the key skills and qualifications section. When you are given responsibility to mentor or to train new employees or novice employees, what your employer is saying is they trust your experience, they trust your judgment, they trust your communication skills, they trust your interpersonal communication skills, so enough to put you in a position of responsibility, which is training new people on the job. So if you've done that on a job, make sure to include that. If you've had supervisory experience on the job, include that. If it's been just part-time, the manager was gone for a month and you were acting manager, include that so that you are communicating the ways in which the organization or business put its trust in you, the ways in which it commended you for the value that you added to the organization. It's right here. Again, answering questions, solving problems for customers. And if you did something and the customer gave you a commendation, you might put in there that you assisted a customer with such and such a type of problem, and the customer wrote an email to the corporation commending me for my work. That kind of customer commendation can weigh very heavily, be very powerful in communicating your value to an organization. And then there's some other work here that Michael did that might have been less directly related to the work in the supermarket, but we'll look at some of the things here, like he was managing the company office. If you have skills where you have managed, organized, monitored, controlled, those kinds of activities, those kinds of actions that indicate what you actually did or the level of responsibility that you had in the company, make sure to include that. You're using what are called action verbs here, things that tell me as the manager looking at your resume, what you did, what you performed, what you accomplished. Okay, and then we're looking at some of the other areas here. Michael did some work in manufacturing, and he performed quality control inspections. So that this is an area of responsibility in that environment that he had, and that he had to make judgments about when these are boards that would go to computers or other electronic equipment, and when those had failed, that he did the testing, he evaluated the results, and went back and returned those boards that failed to the manufacturing area to be fixed. So the work history is where you communicate to the employer the work that you've done. Generally speaking, the work history is going to be the first thing that you mention after the key summary, after your key skills and qualifications that are related to the job. If you don't have paid work, include volunteer work that has some relevance to the job objective that you have, and use action words, use action verbs. Tell people if you've trained. Tell people if you supervised. Tell people if you received commendations or awards, especially from customers. These are all things that can be very powerful in communicating your skills to an employer. Let me go back to the slide presentation for a minute, just make sure I'm covering all the points, the key points from that. So